皆さん、こんにちは。バスです。
ニックです。今日は初めて日本に行った時にショックを受けて6つのことをお話しします。
楽しんでね。
Hi guys, we're back fresh from a short holiday in Portugal, and as you might have seen on our Instagrams, it's fair to say I picked up quite a bit of the sun. Fortunately, my skin's just about stopped peeling in time to record this video, so there's that.
You never learn, do you, Nick? I remember the first time we went to Japan together, and we landed in Tokyo. We were absolutely exhausted after a long flight, and we fell asleep in Yogi Park for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
And your face was peeling for the rest of the holiday.
It was awful. Maybe one day I'll remember to put on the sun cream before I get burned, rather than 2 days afterwards. Sunburn aside, Porto was a beautiful city, and I definitely recommend a visit to anyone who's travelling around Europe.
Absolutely. I think I found my new favourite European destination, and I'd love to go back at some point.
Anyway, on to the topic of today's video, and we'd like to talk about things that we've seen when visiting Japan that have shocked us, actually.
Yeah, I mean, even though we feel like Japan and England are relatively similar in so many ways, there's still things I see in Japan that really surprise me.
Yeah, some things are good, some things not so good, but we thought it'd be interesting for us to talk about it and for you to hear our take on some of the things that might be considered totally normal in Japan. Yeah, it'd be quite different to what we're used to living in the West, in England.
And to kick it off, first we want to talk about smoking in public places. I remember my first trip to Akihabara, walking around the gaming centres and being shocked how all 7 or 8 floors are completely filled with smoke.
Oh yeah, and likewise when you visit izakaya or like other small restaurants, I mean, it's just something we're not used to readily anymore in the UK. Since 2007 there's been a full ban on smoking indoors in public places, and personally I really do think it's made such a huge difference.
I remember when we used to go out clubbing.
Yeah.
You come home and your clothes and hair would stink from all the smoke, and your shoes would be completely covered in this sticky cigarette ash that you picked up off the club floors. It was disgusting.
Yeah, and you'd be lucky if your clothes weren't covered in cigarette burns. You'd get home after you've been out to the club and you'd find holes all over your t-shirts.
I think my hangovers used to feel worse back then as well. I'd wake up with a sore head and a sore throat even though I hadn't been smoking myself. Going out now, it definitely feels healthier without all the secondhand smoke.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of nostalgic going out in Japan though in a way. It feels like the good old clubbing days when we were back at college, but definitely don't miss the smoke in England.
All that said, I've heard that the government in Japan are starting to enforce more laws on smoking, so maybe that's all going to change.
Yeah, maybe. The second thing we'd like to talk about are the lack of rubbish bins in the streets of Japan, especially Tokyo. I mean, here in England you find bins everywhere. Yeah, you'll still see some rubbish in the street.
Yeah.
Whereas in Japan it's rare to see bins anywhere. Yeah, there's almost no litter at all. And I think it really speaks for the culture of the people in Japan.
Yeah, it's definitely a cultural thing. We've mentioned it in the past, but as a foreigner visiting Japan, it's always remarkable to see how clean everywhere is. And you feel like an added responsibility to make sure that you never leave anything anywhere. If some rubbish fell out of my pocket, I'd definitely chase it down the street.
Yeah, definitely. But at the same time, I feel like it perhaps seem inconvenient to some people who are visiting Japan, particularly for the first time. I remember times when I've been walking around holding an empty can of coffee for what seemed like ages, just looking for somewhere to put it, and starting to get worried that I was actually going to have to take it back home in my suitcase to England.
Sometimes it can definitely feel like a bit of a pain hunting for a bin, but it strangely seems to work. I can't imagine how much rubbish there'd be in the streets in England if we had as few public bins in the streets as what Japan does.
Yeah, there would be a lot more, and I think it just goes to show how much the respect Japanese people have for the cleanliness of their neighbourhoods and how much respect they have and consideration for the other people around them.
It really does, and it's one of the things that makes Japan such a pleasant place to visit. The next thing that really surprised me was how you go about ordering food in a Japanese restaurant.
Yeah, I remember one of the first meals I ever had when I was in Japan. And me and my brothers, we walked into this nice little izakaya, and we were taken to a table where we sat for about 15 to 20 minutes, and we were just sat there just looking around. And we started to worry that we're just being ignored. I mean, we finally managed to get the attention of a waiter who apologetically directs us towards this button on the table.
Yeah, in England, most other countries as well that I've visited, when you're in a restaurant and you want to order some food or drinks, you usually have to sit around and catch the attention of a passing waiter or waitress.
Yeah, that's right, but in Japan, well, certainly in a lot of chain restaurants perhaps, it's really common to see these buttons, and I just think it's amazing. You push the button and almost out of nowhere a member of staff appears. And I think it's a genius idea, and I really wish we'd see more of it in the West.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it really seems like a more efficient way to place an order. I notice how more direct people are in attracting the attention of staff in restaurants in Japan. You can always hear somebody shouting, "Sumimasen!" to draw attention, and it's totally normal, but I think that would be seen as quite rude in England.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, but I just think it saves so much time when it comes to ordering your food, and also when you're ready to collect the bill. I've also been to restaurants where they actually have tablets on the table where you can place your order or attract the attention of the staff.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I've never seen that before. I guess that's Japanese efficiency for you.
Next up, we have love hotels. A really interesting concept that seems to leave most British people puzzled when they first hear about them. I mean, could you ever see yourself visiting one of them, Bas?
You know what? I saw a video about this on YouTube, made by your friend Chris from abroad in Japan.
Oh, yeah.
And it made it look like a really cool themed like hotel, to be honest. Yeah. Definitely not what I was expecting.
Yeah, I do remember that room had like literally everything. It had a jacuzzi, big screen TV and a karaoke machine, and then it had some strange room filled with teddy bears. And you could even order food to the room, so I'm not really sure what else you could want from a hotel room.
Ordering a lovely plate of Carriages seems like a great way to refuel. Japan's convenience shines again, and it's not just the refreshments you can order though, is it?
No, I think you can order cosplay to the room as well, and maybe some company, if that's what you're after, Bas.
I'd rather earn someone's precious time than pay for it, mate. It does kind of make me wonder who their market is though.
Yeah, well, I guess it could be like young couples who are still living at home with their parents, or maybe married men just getting up to no good.
Or married women.
Or married women. It could even just be people who are like getting to know each other after meeting in a bar or maybe in a club.
It's definitely not an idea we're used to in the UK. And as far as I know, there are no love hotels here. I don't know if it's a concept that would really work either.
Well, I guess the British would probably just use regular hotels for this kind of thing. Anyway, you never answered my original question.
Well, I mean, the jacuzzis and the cool themed rooms do make me want to experience it in person, but I can't help but feel a little bit weird about it. You know, I wouldn't be able to stop thinking about how clean the rooms are. I mean, the Japanese obviously have a great reputation for keeping everything clean, but do you know what I mean? Besides, I don't think any girl that I'm looking to date will be that impressed if I took her to a love hotel.
Tell you what, next time we're in Japan, I'll go and check into a nice ryokan. I'll enjoy roasting in a beautiful onsen, while you go around investigating love hotels with your camera and an ultraviolet lamp.
I suppose if you think about it too much, you'd never stay anywhere other than your own house. But if you'd like to see me investigate your local love hotel for cleanliness, please leave us a comment.
Please do.
Another thing that really struck me the first time we were in Japan was the amount of power lines you'd see hanging over the streets. I mean, in England we're used to having all of the power running underground. Is that cat messing about?
There's a cat messing about.
Mew, what are you doing?
We're trying to work here.
I'm trying to film you. You gonna come say hey? Come say hey.
And do your lines.
Yeah, let's do that. Come on, man. Another thing that really struck me the first time we were in Japan was the amount of power lines you'd see hanging over the streets. I mean, in England we're used to having them all running under the ground, but in Japan sometimes it looked like a spider's web of electrical cables hanging overhead.
Yeah, it's just so different to what we're used to seeing here. Like, no matter whether you're in a quiet suburban area or in a city centre like Tokyo, it just seems like there's always power lines lurking around the corner. But I do actually kind of like the aesthetic that it does bring. I think it can look really great on photographs. But at the same time, I think a lot of the scenery would probably just benefit from hiding them away.
I read an article a few years back that said that only 7% of Tokyo's 23 special wards have underground power networks, which seems like such a small amount, and that cities like Osaka had even less.
In such a well-developed area, I guess it must just be so incredibly difficult to change the infrastructure that's already in place.
Yeah, I mean the cost and the inconvenience of closing roads and pavements would probably outweigh the benefits of having the cables outside.
Yeah, there are definitely some places where they don't look nice, but there is some kind of like old school appeal to seeing them, especially when they're like running up above the buildings in countryside towns.
I've heard there's been a real effort to drive the power underground in the run-up to the Olympics, which we spoke about in our last video actually. So it'll be interesting to see how this affects the landscape of cities like Tokyo.
The last thing we'd like to talk about today, and perhaps the most shocking for me personally, are the female-only carriages that you sometimes see on the Japanese trains.
Yeah, this is one of the first things I noticed after landing at Haneda Airport, and it's something that really surprised me. I've never seen anything like this before, and it got me wondering whether there's really a need for it.
Well, unfortunately, it seems that there is. I mean, I read a survey from the Tokyo Metropolitan Police and also the JR Railway Company, I think it was from the early 2000s, and it claimed that 2/3 of women aged 20 to 40 had reported being touched against their will on those trains.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it really as high as that? That's such a sad statistic, but I can only hope that the gender-separated carriages has helped that number go down.
Yeah, you would definitely like to believe so at least. I mean, in fact, I've recently heard that there's this new app that's been released in Japan, and it's specifically to tackle this problem, and you press a button on it and it screams "stop it," just to deter people from touching anyone.
Really?
Yeah, from what I read, it's been downloaded like over 237,000 times.
Wow, I mean, it does make me wonder whether we have like a similar issue in England, or whether this kind of system would work here.
I do remember a politician actually suggesting the idea over here a little while back, but I think it was deemed to not be enough of an issue to actually action it.
And whatever the case, no one deserves to be touched against their will, so any effort in reducing that kind of statistics gets a thumbs up from me.
So there we have it, 6 things that surprised us when we first visited Japan.
Every country has its quirks, and we'd love to hear from you in the comment section about the countries that have really surprised you in the past.
Yeah, I'm sure England has plenty of surprises for first-time visitors, especially in London.
No doubt, and as always, please follow us on our Instagram. Our username's at the bottom of the screen now.
So until next time, have a great day, look after yourselves, and we'll see you really soon.
Matane!